Man, our mission here at Journey is we're a church that exists so that people will meet Jesus and journey with him. I want to let you know if you feel far from God, God is not far from you. You're in the right place. And I'm glad that you're here today. Like Dave said, we are concluding this series, He Might Have Meant It. And I wonder, have you ever spent time on something? You spent time, effort, and energy on something, and at the end of all that time, effort, and energy you spent, you responded by saying, wait, that's not what I was supposed to be doing? Like maybe you went into this meeting and you had this idea about what the meeting was for, and so you're in this meeting and you're brainstorming and coming up with ideas about how to make this area better or what to do, and so you're brainstorming, you're talking through this, and you come up with all these ideas, and then you go to the boss and you present your ideas to the boss, and the boss is like, wait, why were you guys talking about that? Like, that's not even the thing that we're focused on. That's not even the project. It's something else. Have you ever done this? Or maybe you have all the supplies in front of you, and you're trying to figure out how to build this bookshelf, and you have the supplies, all the wood is there, and then all the hardware is there, and you're like trying to figure out this bookshelf, it doesn't look right. And you're spending hours trying to figure out how to build this bookshelf. And then finally you just give up. You say, hey, honey, how do I build this bookshelf? And your wife is like, bookshelf? What do you mean? You're supposed to be building a table. Like, have you ever had one of these moments? Or maybe you're driving and you see a Welcome to South Carolina sign, and you're like, South Carolina? Why? Oh my goodness, I've been driving south for 2 hours and I'm supposed to be going east. Have you ever, just me, okay. I wonder, have you ever had these moments where you just put this time, effort, and energy into something, you just realize, like, you missed it, like you were going in the wrong direction, you had the wrong vision, you just missed it completely. Just recently, my wife got her very first tattoo, and her tattoo is way more ambitious and bigger than my first tattoo. She didn't go for like a little heart on her wrist or a little Chinese symbol on her ankle or any small little thing on her lower back just above her butt, like Aaron, who is playing guitar over here, has. He has a tattoo right on his lower back. He would love to show you if you ask him later on. But no, so she said, I'm just going to go big. And so she got this half sleeve. It's going to be a quarter sleeve. See, me, when I got my first tattoo, it was this tribal lion that was on my right shoulder. It was just a small little thing. I was terrified. It's not there anymore. I got it removed and covered up. All of my tattoos are cover-ups. But, man, she went big, and she was so inspired to get this tattoo because she went to this Crucible retreat. And I've talked about Crucible several times if you've been to our church. Crucible is a retreat. They have one for men. They have it for women as well. And it's amazing. I think everybody should sign up for an initial weekend at Crucible. It's a weekend where really you'll discover more about who you are, why you operate the way you do. It's life-changing. And so I went to my initial weekend in 2019, the summer of 2019. My brother-in-law, Dave, who was up here hosting, he's gone to Crucible. Guys like Jeremy, Christian, TJ, Rick, I know, is planning on going to Crucible. Marisol, our family ministry leader, she went to a Crucible retreat. My wife went to a Crucible retreat. I know Carrie, somebody who serves in our family ministry, she's going. So many people are going. And it's life-changing. So that's my plug for Crucible. Christian, who just recently went to Crucible, he said, I keep hearing you peddle Crucible, like you're peddling this. And then he went and he was like, oh, now I know why. So that's my plug. If you're interested, I want to encourage you, just Google Crucible Retreat, the Crucible Project, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. But Irene went to Crucible, and she was so inspired that she said, okay, I want to get this 3/4 sleeve done. And it's amazing. She's the same artist that I use. He's really talented. By the way, when people see my tattoos, they're like, oh, man, those are really nice tattoos. And I say, like, I don't want to take credit for it because I didn't do anything. So I'm just like, thanks. The artist was really good, But so she went and she's getting this done. But this got me thinking. I mean, she's put in 2 sessions so far, a lot of time, some pain to get this done, and I think it's turning out really well. But it got me thinking that there are some people who go to get a tattoo and they have a vision for what they want and they bring that to the artist, but it doesn't quite turn out the way that they want it to. I mean, they put a lot of time, effort, and energy. They go through a lot of pain to get some of these tattoos, and it doesn't quite turn out. And what's worse is when they get it on their back, because then they're thinking, okay, this is how this tattoo is going to end up, and then it's all done, and then the big reveal happens, and they end up getting something that looks like this. Yeah. So like, I mean, I'm sure he went thinking, okay, the one on the right is what I want, but what he got is on the left, and so now he's just getting this cover up here. But I mean, that's got to be terrible. It's on your back for the rest of your life, right? And then here's another one. Yeah, there's a beautiful tattoo. I mean, you bring this picture, and I don't know if that's the best picture to bring anyway, but then you end up with something even worse like that. Here's another one. Yeah, oh gosh, this is like the girl from The Grudge, right? That's on his shoulder. Here's another one. Yeah, that's spot on, actually. I mean, that's pretty good. No, not really. And again, right on the back, he doesn't even know. And here's another one. Yeah, there's your kids. These kids came from West Virginia, right? So there's that. Here's another one. Yeah, just bad. I mean, what's going on with this guy's eye and the teeth? And then they said, well, here, I guess if that's what our kids look like, let's just put the tattoo on our actual kid's face, and there it is. So here's another one. Yeah, there's a good dog picture for you. Here's another one. Perfect. Marilyn Monroe right there, right? Yeah. All right, here, she looks like she's in pain. All right, here's another one. Oh, this is so close. So close, but yet so far away. Yeah. So, I mean, how would it be if you go through all this time, effort, and energy, and then at the end you look and it's like, this is not what it was supposed to be? Like Dave mentioned, we're concluding this series called He Might Have Meant It, and we're talking about the tough teachings of Jesus. And what I want to do today is I want to draw our attention to the very last teaching that Jesus gave us, the very last command that Jesus gave us before he exited. So I would say this is probably one of the greatest commands that Jesus gives us, because these are his final words. It's like before Jesus leaves, he says, here's the thing that I want you to know and that I want you to do. And we find it in Matthew chapter 28, right at the end of Matthew. So Matthew chapter 28, verse 16, it says this: Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And then Jesus came to them and he said, hey, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age. And what's amazing here is that not only is Jesus with Shirley, but he's with all of us. That was a great preacher joke that two of you got. I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah. Surely I am with you always to the very end of the age, because he says surely, and I was told when you have to explain a joke, it's not funny anymore. So this is the final and the greatest command that Jesus gives to people who would follow him. And so he's talking to these 11 disciples of his, but he's also talking to everybody who would follow him. And he gives us, you and I, this same command. And essentially what Jesus is saying is, listen, I didn't come here to be crucified and resurrected so that just you can be saved and you can have a relationship with God and you can be with me in heaven one day. No, I came here to start a movement. I came here on mission, and it's a worldwide mission. And I came here to invite you to be part of this movement. I came here to invite you to be part of the mission. So now that you've accepted me, now that you're following me, congratulations, because you get to join the movement. You get to join the mission. And so this is the final command Jesus gives to everyone who would follow him. And this command is so difficult that he says, I promise I'll be with you. Like, if you do this final command, I will be with you. You won't do it alone. And I find it fascinating that Jesus promises to be with us 3 times in all his ministry. The first time is, or one of the times is this time right here when he says, hey, when you go and make disciples, and you teach them to obey all that I've commanded you, when you go and baptize people, when you do that, I'm going to be with you because you can't do it on your own. You're going to need my strength. You're going to need my help. You're going to need my guidance. So I will be with you. Jesus is saying, when you go and you help people meet me and journey with me, meet me, baptize them, and journey with them, teach them to obey everything I've commanded, I'll be with you. And that's the mission of our church. We exist so that people will meet Jesus and journey with him. We want people to be baptized into Jesus, to meet him, and then journey with him, do the things that he said. And Jesus says, when you do that, I'll be with you. So I want Jesus to be with our church, and so that's our mission, to help people meet Jesus and journey with him. So he said, I'll be with you when you do this command. Baptize people and teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. He also said this, I'll be with you when you serve other people. We see it in Matthew chapter 25, verse 40. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And so Jesus is saying, hey, when you serve people, when you help people, it's almost like you're helping me. You're serving me. And so I'm right there in your midst. I'm right there with you. He also says he'll be with us when we gather together. Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. For when 2 or 3 come together in my name, there am I with them. And so when we gather with other people in a group or in a service like this, Jesus says, I'll be with you. So I'll be with you when you introduce people to me and you teach them to walk with me. I'll be with you when you serve other people. I'll be with you when you gather with other Christians. I'll be in your midst. This is why being part of the local church is so important. It's so vital that we gather together like this on Sunday, because Jesus says, when you gather like this, and this isn't the only place where Jesus promises to be with us, but he says, when you gather like this, you're in the midst of all these people, I'm right here with you. When you serve other people, that's why it's so important for us to serve in the local church. And we can serve other places as well. But when we serve in the local church, Jesus says, I promise I'll be with you. This is why it's so important. When we say, hey, come and see, I want to tell you about the one who's changed my life, Jesus says, I'll be with you. I don't know about you, but I want Jesus to be with me. So I want to be in these environments around other people who are following Jesus. I want to serve other people. And I want to invite people to come and see, because I want Jesus to be with me. And he says, I'll be with you when you do those things. And so Jesus says, what I'm about to tell you is so difficult, it's so hard, that I'm going to be with you when you do this. And there's a lot that he gives us in this command, so I just want to park here and break down the various parts of this command Jesus gives us. So first, notice that the passage starts off in Matthew chapter 28, verse 16. It says this, then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus told them to go. So Jesus has been crucified and resurrected, and it said, then the 11 disciples went to the mountain in Galilee where Jesus told them to go. Here's what I want you to know. A disciple of Jesus is someone who does what Jesus says to do. What's a disciple? A disciple of Jesus is somebody who does what Jesus says to do. Jesus told his disciples to go to this mountain in Galilee, and they went to the mountain in Galilee. Why? Because they're disciples, and disciples do what Jesus says to do. I think we have that point right here. So if you want to take a picture of that and not forget it, there it is. But a disciple of Jesus does what Jesus says to do. And it even translates into something as small as meeting him in a mountain. And I say it's small, but it's actually not that small. I want to show you what I mean. Here's a map of Israel. See, Jesus was crucified and resurrected in Jerusalem, this circle down at the bottom in Judea. And it said that the 11 disciples met him on a mountain in Galilee. Now, Galilee, and the mountain that they met him at, is 70 miles away. So it would take about 3 days travel to get to Galilee. So Jesus crucified and resurrects in Jerusalem, but he says, I want you to meet me on this mountain in Galilee. So the disciples trekked 70 miles to meet Jesus on this mountain in Galilee, and on this mountain, he tells them this command that we just read. And then what happens is those same disciples walk back to Bethany. Now, Bethany is right next to Jerusalem. So they travel 70 miles to meet Jesus on this mountain in Galilee. And then they travel down to Bethany, another 70 miles, where Jesus meets them again. And when Jesus meets them in Bethany, later on in the book of Acts, we see this in the very beginning of the book of Acts. Jesus essentially tells them the exact same thing that he told them on this mountain in Galilee. So he's crucified and resurrected in Jerusalem. He says, meet me on this mountain in Galilee. He tells them what he tells them, and then they walk back down. He meets them again in Bethany, and he tells them pretty much the same exact thing, and it's in Bethany that he then ascends into heaven. And if I'm one of Jesus' disciples, I'm wondering, bro, why did we walk a round trip of 140 miles for you to tell us this one thing at this mountain in Galilee, and then for you to tell us the exact same thing in Bethany? Couldn't we have just moseyed on over just a couple miles to Bethany and you tell us the thing you wanted to tell us? Why do we have to go all the way up there? The reason is because Jesus knows if they're not willing to walk to the mountain, they won't do the command he's going to tell them. If they aren't willing to travel the 70 miles to the mountain to meet him where he said to meet them, just a small thing, then they won't do the thing he's commanding them to go into all the world. If they're not willing to meet him at the mountain, there's no way they're going to go into all the world. I want to illustrate this like this. See, sometimes we want great, grand, amazing things in our life. We want God to do extravagant things in our life. But the problem is we aren't always willing to meet him at the mountain. And so what happens is we gather together like this on Sundays and we'll sing these beautiful songs. We'll sing these grandiose words to God. In some of the songs, we sing things like this. Listen to this.
Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior.
Yeah, wherever you would call me. God, Spirit, take me deeper than my feet would ever wander. Take me to a place where my trust is without borders. God, this is what I want. Take me deep, take me farther. And I think God is saying, yeah, I want to do that, but you got to stop standing on the shore. I want to take you deeper, but you're hanging out in the kiddie pool right now. I want to take you deeper, but you won't even serve in my local church. You want to go deeper? Go serve in the family ministry. Go serve with elementary kids. How about that? Well, I don't know about that, God. I mean, not that. But take me deeper. Take me to a place where my trust is without borders, God. Okay, how about you invite your friend to church? Well, I don't really know because we can't talk about religion at work, and so I don't really know. I don't want to offend them. But take me deeper. Jesus says, hey, meet me on the mountain in Galilee. Here's why. Because I'm about to give you a command that's going to blow your mind. It's going to take you deeper. It's going to take you to a place where your trust is without borders. But in order to get there, you got to go to the mountain. We stand and we sing these songs, but I wonder if we really mean it. I wonder if sometimes God looks at us and he's like, really? You want me to take you deeper? Because have you read about what happened with Paul, this early Christian church who started churches all over the Roman world? And he wrote letters to them? Like, he was stoned, he was beaten, he was abandoned, he went through a whole lot of stuff. That's deep. That's a place where your trust is without borders. You want to go there? Nah, never mind. I'll just show up to church every once in a while. I think instead, some of us, we just need to sing, take me to church. Here's another song we sing.
Our Father saw in the days of old, would you do it again? Do it again. All the stories told, all the miracles, would would you do it again? Do it again. You said consecrate yourself to me, and you would see amazing things. We need your revival, Holy Spirit fire, burning ever brighter in our souls. Kings and kingdoms falling, here are people calling. King of kings, we need a miracle.
All right, cut it. Listen, this is what we do. All the days of old, all our fathers saw, God, we want to see you do it again. Would you do it again? Do it again. Do it again. Do it again in our midst. We want to see Holy Spirit fire all up in our souls, revival. And then God's like, yeah, I want that for you too. But you won't even read the Bible. I want that for, is this too hard? We came here to change, right? We came here to be challenged. We came here to do something with our lives. We came here because we want to be more like Jesus. Am I wrong? Okay, good. Stay with me. I think God's saying, I want that for you too. I want that for you too. Listen, I want you to have a revival in your finances, but you got to sit down and make a budget, bro. God calls us bro too, right? Like, I get it. God, I need a revival in my marriage. Only you can work a miracle in my marriage. And I think God is saying, yeah, I want to, but you got to change the way y'all talk to each other. Because your tone of voice is not good. God, I want a miracle in my life. I want a revival to take place. I want a breakthrough, and I'm ready for it. I think God's like, but when's the last time you really prayed desperately? Needing me, seeking me. I think sometimes we want the great, grandiose, big things in life. We see the things that are written in the scriptures, and it's like, yeah, I want that in my life. And God's just like, yeah, I know, I want that for you too, but you got to meet me at the mountain. You're not even willing to meet me at the mountain. So there's no way that I can tell you go into all the world, meet me at the mountain. Jesus told his disciples, meet me at this mountain in Galilee, because he knew if they don't meet me at the mountain, they're going to be terrified by the command I'm going to give them. They're not going to do the thing that I'm going to tell them to do. There's no way. If they're unwilling to meet me at the mountain, they will not go into all the world and make disciples. I wonder, are you willing to meet Jesus at the mountain? Are you willing to say, I'm going to love like you love. I'm going to forgive like you forgive. I'm going to make Sundays a priority. I'm going to start serving. I'm going to invite people to meet you, Jesus. One of the ways that we encourage people to do this is through what we call the 4 Gs in our church. It's growth, groups, gifts, and giving. Growth is simply sharing about how you're growing in God. You share that with other people. Hey, here's what God's doing in my life. You should come and see. And then you invite them to come and see. You invite them to an environment like this where they can come and see. So that's growth. Groups is I'm going to get involved in a group. I'm going to build community, make connections, make friendships with people who I sit with on Sunday mornings. And then I'm going to hear about their life. They're going to hear about my life. And we're going to do this together because we can't do life alone. And then there's gifts. I'm going to use my gifts to serve and make a difference. God has given me some gifts, abilities, and talents to make a difference. And so I'm going to serve in the local church. And then giving is everything I have comes from God. And so, God, I'm just going to give a portion of it back to you. I'm going to return the first 10% back to you. Here's what I believe. If we're unwilling to engage in these 4 Gs, growth, groups, gifts, and giving, then it's like we're standing on the shore. We're playing in the kiddie pool. And God's like, I want something so much bigger for you. But you got to meet me on the mountain. I wonder, are you willing to meet him on the mountain today? Because I think Jesus meant what he said when he gave us this final command. But the thing is, if the disciples don't ever meet him on the mountain, they're not going to get this command. They're not going to do it. And you and I are here today because those disciples took seriously what Jesus said, and they went into the world, and they shared their faith, and they spread it. You are here today because somebody shared their faith with you. They took seriously what Jesus said on the mountain. And I wonder, will you? So they meet him at the mountain, Matthew 28:16. The 11 disciples went to Galilee, 70 miles, to the mountain where Jesus told him to go. Again, a disciple of Jesus does what Jesus says to do. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. But some doubted. That's encouraging, isn't it? They traveled 70 miles to meet Jesus on this mountain, the resurrected Jesus, but some doubted. These 11 disciples were disciples who spent the past 3 years with Jesus. They saw this Jesus feed thousands of people. They saw him heal the blind and the lame and the sick. They saw this Jesus raise people from the dead. They witnessed Jesus crucified on a cross. They witnessed him resurrect from the dead. They've walked 70 miles to meet him on this mountain in Galilee, and the commentary says, but some doubted. That's encouraging. To know that his disciples, who spent the last 3 years of their life up close and personal with Jesus, are worshiping him, but they still have some doubts. And that's good news for you and I. To know that when we have doubts, and I want you to notice what's not in the passage, Jesus doesn't say, what's wrong with you? He doesn't scold them. But even they had some doubts. And again, this should give you some comfort in the times that you doubt. Jesus' disciples who spent 3 years right next to him, witnessed all these things, still had some doubts. But their doubts didn't prevent them from worshiping God. It's in the middle of their doubt that they still worship God. And I want to encourage you, in the midst of your doubt, in the midst of your questions, in the midst of your hardships and trials and difficulties, you still worship God. Here's what happens. When many people doubt, they pull back from God. Instead, we need to press in to God. The disciples show us when we're preoccupied with doubt, it shouldn't prevent us from worship, but instead we need to press into the presence of God and praise him even more. And so sure, you may not have all the answers, and yes, you may not understand why this happened, and of course it may be confusing as to why you're going through this circumstance, but here's what I know when I face doubt: I've been delivered. Here's what I know when I face uncertainty: God is unfailing. Here's what I can trust when my faith is matched with mistrust: that God has made a way for me in the past, and he'll do it again. And so you can't allow your doubt to prevent you from praise. See, what we see here from the disciples is that we don't worship God based off of our circumstances, but we worship God in spite of our circumstances. And even though some doubted, they still met him at the mountain and worshiped. That's not what I want to talk to you about today, though. This is what I really want to talk to you about. All that was an intro. Here's what I really want to talk to you about. Matthew 28:18. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, because I have all authority, because all things are under me, because I'm over all things, here's what I want you to do. Go and make disciples. And we already know what a disciple is. A disciple is somebody who does what Jesus says to do. If I don't do what Jesus says to do, I'm not a disciple. A disciple does what Jesus says to do. So he said, go make disciples of all nations. So a disciple makes disciples, because that's what Jesus says to do, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely, Joe and John and everybody else, there it is again, I am always, it's not a funny joke. I am with you always to the very end of the age. Here's what Jesus commands his disciples to do, to go make disciples. If you're a disciple of Jesus, you can know if you're a disciple of Jesus by asking the question, am I making disciples? What's a disciple? A disciple is somebody who does what Jesus says to do. So am I intentionally investing in others, teaching them, not just teaching them, not just educating them, but teaching them to obey. Obey, that's what a disciple does. They do what Jesus says to do. Am I intentionally investing in others, teaching them to obey what Jesus says to do? And I will know if those people I'm investing in are disciples because they are doing the same thing. They are going and making disciples. So here's the question I have for you. As you look at your life, do you have intentional relationships that are leading to you baptizing that person? Because that's what Jesus said to do. I want you to go into all the world and make disciples. Here's how you do it. Baptize them, and then so help them meet Jesus. Do you have intentional relationships where hopefully if you follow it down the line, hopefully that person comes to meet Jesus because of your influence, because of your conversations with them? And do you have people you're intentionally investing in right now, you're pouring into, and you're teaching them not just what Jesus said, but you're teaching them to obey what Jesus said. And they're doing it. And then they're making a plan to go and make disciples as well. Are you doing that? Because that's the mission. Before Jesus leaves, he says, here's what I want you to do. Go into all the world and make disciples. That's your job, not my job. It's my job too because I'm a Christian. But it's your job, if you're a Christian, to go make disciples. So are you doing that? It would be like if I came to you and I said, okay, I'm going to hire you to work in my shoe factory, right? So I got the shoe factory. I've built it. We got the machinery. We got the plans. We got the blueprints. Here's how you make shoes. Now go make shoes. And then I leave. And then I come back a year later and I say, hey, how is the shoemaking going? And you said to me, funny thing you should ask. Because we haven't really made many shoes. But here's what we have done. We've had a lot of meetings talking about shoes and how cool they are and coming up with some designs for shoes. And we were talking about the benefits of shoes and how cool shoes really are. Meeting, talking about shoes, and those have been pretty good. We've even introduced like games in our meetings and stuff like that. And so like we'll play some games that involve shoes, which is really, really fun. You should come check out a meeting. And here's the thing. This guy, Roy, he just started writing songs about shoes. Who knew, right? So he started writing songs about shoes, and they're pretty good. I think he could actually create a whole industry where people sing songs about shoes. So when we gather for these meetings, we sing some of these songs about shoes, then we play games about shoes, we talk about shoes, and it's really, really neat. And here's the thing, we all wear shoes, right? We wear shoes, and so we like them, and then but we haven't really made a lot of shoes. I would say, you missed it. Wait, the whole point is to make shoes. This is a shoe factory. I've commanded you, I've committed you, I've commissioned you to make shoes, not to talk about shoes, not to sing about shoes, not to think about shoes, but to make shoes. You've missed it. In the same way, I wonder if Jesus came back and he were to say to us, hey, how'd you do on that last command, like making disciples? How'd you do? I think many of us would say, well, I can't really point to any disciples that I've really made, but here's what I did do. I went to some meetings, like on Sunday mornings, and I heard about it. And I also, you left a really good book on it, and I even took time to read about the things you said, and I digested it, and I studied it, and I even sang some songs, too, about, all the things I want to do. I didn't do it, but, I sang the songs. And I really wanted to, my heart was in it, but I just didn't. So, but I tried. I think Jesus would be like, great, I'm glad you did that, but you missed the main point. The main point was, now that you know me, share that love and hope and joy with other people and give them what you now have. See, I started thinking about this for me. I know a while ago I was really convicted by this. When I discovered, when I read this, and I had read Matthew chapter 28 for a long time, and I was like, yeah, okay, I've baptized some people. I've told people about Jesus. I've invited people to church and things like that. But then I just really got into it. A disciple does what Jesus says to do, and Jesus said to go make other disciples. So am I intentionally investing in people who are doing the things that Jesus said to do? And am I teaching them to obey what Jesus said to do? And like, if you ask me, hey, are you making disciples? I'd be like, well, I mean, I preach sermons, but I don't know if people do what's preached. Like, and there were times, really, I got convicted, and I said, you know what? I wonder if I'm leading a church of attenders. I wonder if I'm leading a church, like, are we a church of disciple makers? Are we a church where because we gather like this, we do the things Jesus said to do, and then we're so inspired that we teach others to do the things Jesus said to do? And I said, I don't know if I'm doing that. So what I did, I think last year was I said, okay, I need to be really intentional about this. So I reached out to some guys and I said, hey, let's meet on a weekly basis, and we're going to do this discipleship group. And so we're going to talk about what Jesus said to do, but then we're going to do what he said to do. And so we got together, we'd meet, and then we'd talk about like reading the Bible. We said, okay, so we're going to make it a point and a priority this week to read the Bible. And so we looked at some scriptures around that, and we said, all right, so this week, every single day, we're going to wake up before the sun and read the Bible. And then next week, we're going to meet together and see like, hey, did we do the thing we said we were going to do? And so we met up the next week, and we'd be like, hey, did you do the thing you said you were going to do? And it was like, well, I did it 5 days a week, or no, I didn't do it at all, or whatever. So I said, okay, before we move on, we need to talk about reading the Bible again, and that's going to be our homework for this week. Because the idea is this. If you were building a house, and I brought like lumber to you, and nails, and I said, okay, frame the house up. And then I came back a week later, and I was like, all right, did you frame the house up? And you're like, no, I didn't do it. I'm not going to bring, like, shingles to you and windows now. It's like, okay, well, let's revisit framing the house and do that. And once we get that, then we'll move on to the next thing. So that's what we did. We said, okay, well, we didn't do the thing we said we were going to do, or, like, this person didn't do it, so we all got to do it again. So we started back over, and then the homework that week was read the Bible 7 days a week. And we met up the next week, and not everybody did it. So we're like, okay, we're going to talk about reading the Bible and why that's important. And then this is our homework. And so the next week, you know what? Everybody did it. So then we moved on to the next thing. And we said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about prayer. So we talked about prayer, the importance of prayer, how to pray. And then the homework was we're going to pray every day before the sun comes up for 7 days. And then we met up the next week. Hey, did everybody do it? Nah, I slept in this one day. All right, we're going to talk about prayer. And then our homework this week is to wake up before the sun every day this week and do it. And then we met up the next week, and then they all did it. Then we moved on to the next thing, where we talked about sharing your story. So together, we wrote down our story about how we, and then the homework was, okay, you got to tell 3 people your story. And then next week, we met up, and everybody did it, because they were like, I don't want to do that again. They're like, I don't want to make everybody go do it again. And so we did this for like 8 or 9 weeks, where we just met together. We talked about what Jesus said to do. We got homework, and then we did it. And if we didn't do it, then we started back over, and we had to do it again. And so we did this over and over again for 8 or 9 weeks. And then at the end of those weeks, the goal then was, okay, now you go and find 3 or 4 guys who you're going to disciple. You're going to run them through this same process. And it didn't happen that I know of. Like, it kind of fizzled out. And then since then, I haven't really been meeting with anybody intentionally doing this stuff. And so as I was preparing for this sermon, I got really convicted, and I was like, man, how am I doing at doing the thing Jesus said to do? And I give myself probably a C- or a D when it comes to making disciples. So I wonder, how would you rate yourself? When it comes to being in relationships with people, intentional relationships, where it's leading to them saying, I want to meet Jesus. I want to be baptized into him, and you're the one baptizing them. What relationships do you have right now where that's happening? What intentional relationships do you have right now where you're meeting with somebody intentionally? I'm not talking about, and we can reach and stretch and say, well, there's that one time I did do this, or sometimes I kind of do this. How are you intentionally meeting with someone or some people teaching them to obey what Jesus said to do, to make a disciple. Maybe do this in your family. I mean, if you're a parent, like your kids are your primary audience, and it's your role and responsibility to help them become disciples, to teach them to obey what Jesus says to do. And so that means you're doing it as well. But beyond just your family, beyond just your kids, who in your life are you meeting with right now on a regular basis, teaching them to obey all the things Jesus said to do? My answer is nobody. I'm not. I lead a group. We talk about the things that Jesus said to do, and there are some action steps there. I do stand on a 1.5 foot stage and talk about what Jesus said to do, and hope you do it. But I'm not like intentionally investing in someone or some people, giving that kind of homework, and then following back and saying, did we do this? How did we see growth in our life? And then seeing them go and do it. That's how you know you made a disciple. They then go and disciple other people. I wonder for you, where are you in this? And maybe you say, yeah, it sounds like that's hard work, but that's what Jesus told us to do. Go into all the world and make disciples, not converts, not followers, not people who like Jesus, but disciples, people who are going to do what Jesus said to do. So how are you doing at that? I mean, you say, I'm good with just showing up at church. Okay, but that's not what Jesus commanded us to do. I don't know if I have time for that. Maybe we got to reorder some priorities then. Because I think Jesus might have meant it when he said, go into all the world and make disciples. And I don't want at the end of my life, I get to heaven and Jesus said, you did great here, 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 and here, but how'd you do on that last command? And I'm like, oh, I thought I was doing it, but turns out I missed it. So I want to give you 3 practical steps right now that you can do to be on this journey. The first is this. Align your life with what Jesus says and start doing it. This is why we showed up to church today, because we want to be more like Jesus. I know there's some difficult stuff. It's tough teachings of Jesus. Align your life with what Jesus says to do and start doing it. Number 2 is this. Engage in the 4 Gs, growth, groups, gifts, and giving. There's no way you can make other disciples if you don't first meet Jesus at the mountain. Growth, invite some people to come and see. Groups, get involved in a group. Meet some people. Let's build some friendships. We're a church. Let's do this together. Gifts. Use the gifts God has given you to serve others, to help other people. Don't keep it for yourself. We need you. You're God's gift to humanity when you use the gifts he's given to serve others. And then giving. Say, God, everything I have comes from you. I'm going to give back to you. And so engage in those 4 Gs. And then finally, number 3, pick some people, set up a time to meet, and then teach them to obey what Jesus said. I don't know how to do that. Here's what you can do. If you go to our website, this is journey.church. There's a tab at the top that says content. Tap on that tab. There's a drop-down menu that'll come down. And then there's an option that says make disciples. Start making disciples. Something about disciples. You'll see it. Disciples. Click on that. It'll take you to a page. It'll explain to you just what I said. And then there's a button there for you to tap on. It'll take you to a document that'll walk you through this process of just kind of getting your feet wet and making disciples. This isn't all there is involved in making disciples, but this is a start. So I want to invite you, pick some people, set up a time to meet, and then just go through this curriculum that we've given you. That's not the end-all, be-all of disciple making, but it's a start. And I want to ask you, what would it be like if we all did this? What would it be like if you had 2 or 3 people you were meeting with on a weekly basis, and you were looking at what Jesus said, and you said, hey guys, Jesus says to do this. Let's do it this week. How would your life change? How would their life change? How would people you don't even know, how would their life change down the road because you've made disciples who then make disciples, who then make disciples, who then make disciples? How many people's lives would be impacted? How would this city be changed if we actually did this? Jesus said, go into all the world and make disciples. I think he might have meant it. I really do. So, if nothing else, maybe we can give it a shot? Yeah? Me and you, we're going to do it. Okay. Awesome. The rest of you guys think about it, pray about it, pray about it. No, you don't need to pray about it. Jesus said to do it. Why do we do it? Well, let me pray about it. You don't need to pray about what Jesus said to do. Just do it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It's going to stretch you. It's going to get you outside your comfort zone. But you know what happens when you get stretched, when you get outside your comfort zone, when you do challenging things? You grow. That's why we're here, because we want to grow. And growth is optional. It's up to you. Hey, what we're going to do is we're going to take communion in a moment. We're going to sing that song, Oceans. Take me deeper than my feet would ever wander. Take me to a place my trust is without borders. That's like, God, I want to meet you at the mountain and do the thing you said. I don't want you to lie to God, though. If you don't mean it, don't sing it. Or maybe you say, I don't mean it, but I want to mean it. Then say it and let it be your prayer to God. God, I'm not there yet, but I want to be. I want you to take me deeper. I need help getting out of the boat. So as we sing that song, if you don't mean it, don't sing it. Or if you want to mean it, sing it and let it be your prayer. And if you mean it, sing it like you mean it. As we take communion, you got cups in your chairs. There's bread and juice in the cups. The bread, it reminds us of Jesus' body broken for us. The juice, it reminds us of his blood that was shed for us. Again, as we sing this next song, feel free to take communion anytime you'd like. And maybe for some of you, the first step is saying, I'm going to go all in with Jesus. I believe that he died for me on the cross. He rose again from the dead. And because of that, I want to give him my life and be baptized into him. That's meeting him at the mountain and beginning there. If that's you, man, in our Connect form, there's a box that says, I want to be baptized, or I got questions about baptism. Check that box. We want to talk to you about it and help you take your next step. Or you can see one of our guide team members in the lobby that have a blue hoodie on. You can ask them about it as well. But I think Jesus might have meant what he said. I don't know about you, but I want to do it. I want to do it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging. But I got no other choice, because I want to be like Jesus, and being like Jesus means I got to do what he says. I hope you feel the same. Would you pray with me? God, I want to thank you for your grace, your love, your mercy. You are so good to us. All of us in here are at different areas in our life, different points in our life. Man, for some of us, it sounds really terrifying. It sounds scary. It's intimidating. And we don't know where to start. God, would you just help us start with engaging in the 4Gs then? Would you just help us conquer our fear, develop some confidence, and just start with a conversation? We want to be more like you, but we got to do what you said. So help us do that. Help us do that. In Jesus' name, amen.